Today I will be reading Chapter 19 of Rump, the True Story of Rumpelstiltskin. Chapter 19 is called Trolls, Witches, and Poison Apples. And if you remember, at the end of the last chapter, there was a cliffhanger. Trolls caught Rump in a trap. So let's see what happens. The trolls heaved and grunted at the sight of me. They smacked their lips.
Well done, brother. Looks like your trap caught us a nice, tasty boy.
But I want a goat, said the first troll.
Oh no, a boy is even better, much more succulent, practically a feast.
They all snorted and hopped up and down.
He's awfully skinny. Do you think his legs will have any meat?
I get the fingers. They look like the juiciest part of him.
I'll take the rear. I've been longing for a rump roast.
I couldn't help it. I started laughing. Rump roast. My destiny was to be eaten.
He laughed. I like this human. Let's eat him now.
The trolls closed in on me and licked their lips with horribly long gray tongues. I twisted and writhed, trying to free myself. If I could just get down, I had a sliver of a chance of getting away, but it was no use. My bindings only tightened with my squirming, and the trolls were now packed in a circle around me. I squeezed my eyes shut and prepared for the worst.
Wait,
said a troll. I opened my eyes. The troll held out his arms to stop the others from coming closer. Maybe he wanted to eat me all by himself. He sniffed hard through his fat, misshapen nose.
Do you smell that?
The other troll sniffed too and stalked forward until they were all right up close. From upside down, I could see straight up their noses, all hairy and slimy.
He smells,
said one troll.
Not like most humans,
finished another. Cut him down, said the first troll, and don't let him go. It was hard to tell from upside down, but I thought the trolls looked a little confused. With a quick slash, I was released and fell right at the feet of my captors. I looked up at them and squealed. He was terrifyingly ugly and smelled even worse.
Bring him over near the fire, he told the others. Bard will want to see this.
The fire? They didn't want to eat me cold. The trolls dragged me through the trees like a dead rabbit. I couldn't speak or even move.
Scared out of his senses,
laughed one troll.
We have that effect on humans.
The trolls dragged my limp body farther into the trees until we reached a small clearing where there was a large fire and even more trolls sitting around it. They released me, and I scrambled to my hands and knees to search for a way to escape, but I was surrounded by smelly, ugly, man-eating trolls. A pot of some stinking brew was boiling over a fire. Maybe they intended to cook me in that.
What's this?
said a girl troll. The only reason I thought she was a girl was because her voice was slightly higher and she had two long, tangled braids. Otherwise, she looked the same as the rest.
This boy tried to eat the apples,
said the troll, dragging me.
Of course he did, said the girl troll. But what did you bring him here for?
Bork did it, said one. He said to not let him go.
The first troll, the one they called Bork, reached down and lifted me up by the back of my shirt with one hand. I flailed my arms as I hung in the air.
Smell it, Bard,
said Bork. The girl troll bent down and sniffed a little, and then a lot. I held my breath so I wouldn't have to sniff her. Finally, her eyes widened and she looked up at Bork.
Strange,
said the girl troll. I guess her name was Mard.
I know,
said Bork.
I almost wish he had eaten one of those apples just to see what would have happened.
A few trolls growled at Bork. They all seemed to think he had said something really horrible. A few of the trolls closed in on me. Maybe they thought the apples would spoil the taste of their dinner. All this talk of food was making me hungry, and if I couldn't eat before I died, I'd like to die quickly.
Could you get this over with, please?
I said. The trolls looked at me, confused. I guess they didn't often have people begging to be eaten.
Get one over with,
said one.
Who do you think you are making demands?
Well, I've been through a lot and I could use a break, so if you could just eat me quickly.
The trolls were all silent for a moment as they looked from each other to me and back to each other. Then they all started laughing, or I guessed they were laughing. Their bodies were heaving like laughter, but the laughs sounded more like growls and howls and snorts. Bork suddenly released me, and I fell to the ground with a grunt. All my sore bones screamed at me.
"He's begging us to eat him," said a troll. "We don't really want to eat you. What of you is there to eat?"
But, I started. Here, Mard, the girl troll, handed me a cup of what looked like steaming mud, or something even worse. You must be hungry, seeing as you were trying to eat those apples. Have some sludge. The sludge was greenish-brown, and it stank, and it moved. All the trolls were slurping it down like it was honey, but that made it even less appetizing. I looked down at the sludge and then back up at the trolls. You're not going to eat me? I asked. Ugh, said the troll, another girl, I thought. It was so hard to tell.
"It's a bit of a joke that humans believe we'll eat them," said Bork.
And they think they actually taste good. So vain.
"But it keeps them away mostly."
Away? I asked. Away from us, said Mart. Humans are trouble, dressed up pretty, especially that greedy idiot King Barfa and whatever his silly name is. What kind of trouble? I asked. Humans, I mean. We always thought it was trolls who were trouble.
"And that's the way we like it,"
said Bork. The other trolls gagged and spit in agreement.
"If those greedy humans didn't think we'd gobble them up, they'd try and make slaves out of us."
Slaves? But why? I asked. All the trolls looked in different directions and shifted uncomfortably. Never mind why, said Mard. The humans take one look at any living creature and think only of how they can use it.
"But we've made ourselves out to be villains," said Bork. "Isn't that smart?"
It's not smart if you're going to tell him, said a troll wearing a helmet with deer horns. He's a human too, you know.
"He's not like the rest. Can't you smell it on him?" asked Bork.
I can, said Deer Horns. Smell what on me? I asked. I tried to sniff myself. I was pretty dirty, but I couldn't smell anything over the rancid odor of the trolls and their sludge. The trolls looked at each other cautiously. Never mind that, said Mard. We're not going to eat you. I was still a little suspicious, sitting here in the midst of all these trolls who kept saying that I smelled. What were you trying to catch by the apple tree if you don't eat humans? I asked. Bork's trying to catch a pet, said Mard. He's always wanted a pet.
"I want a goat," said Bork forlornly. "Not a boy."
Drink your sludge, said Mard. I looked down at the cup full of mystery mud. My stomach grumbled, but I wasn't sure I was hungry enough to drink this. I wished I had the meat pie, which was back by the road with nothing. I thought about those red, juicy apples just sitting on the tree. Maybe trolls didn't like apples. Maybe they thought they tasted like mud, and mud tasted like sweet fruit. Maybe they didn't know humans would rather eat apples than mud. What's wrong with the apples? I asked.
"What's wrong with the apples?"
said Deer Horns. Did you ever see an apple tree full of ripe apples this early in the year? I thought for a moment. Actually, I've never seen an apple tree at all. They don't grow in the mountain where I'm from. I've only seen apples off the tree. Well, that's no ordinary apple tree, said Mard. Bork leaned over the fire to speak to me. He had as much hair on his arms as I did on my head.
"It's poison," he said. "You could have died, or worse. You should thank us."
Thank you, I said.
"To sludge," said Bork, lifting his cup, "and no poisoned apples."
The rest of the trolls grunted,
"To sludge!"
and then they all slurped down their drinks. Then they all watched me expectantly. I guess I had to drink it or be considered impolite. What did trolls do with impolite guests? I put it to my mouth and took a sip. It tasted like rotten vegetables, and it was slimy. And I think I swallowed a worm. The trolls all smiled and nodded.
"Ah, that's the stuff. Sets you up for life.
Makes you big and strong." I wanted to ask more questions, partly because I was curious, but mostly so I wouldn't have to drink more of the sludge.
How do you know the apples are poisoned? I asked. One poisoned apple seemed believable, but an entire tree of them was strange.
Oh, the apples again, said Deerhorns. We'd best tell him the story, shouldn't we? You tell it, Bork. Why, me. You tell it, Slop. You found the boy, said Deerhorns, or I guess his name was Slop, and you make the story sound so pretty.
Bork grumbled under his breath, but when he started speaking, his voice was low and dramatic.
A long time ago there was a witch, see? She was the queen of some other kingdom far from here, beyond yonder, even beyond even. She tried to kill her stepdaughters because she was jealous of her beauty.
Gran used to tell me this story, and it was one of my favorites. The girl ran away and lived with dwarves, but the witch queen found her out and fed her a poisoned apple, one that would make her fall asleep forever. But it didn't work because the prince woke her with true love's first kiss and all that, and she lived happily ever after with her prince. That was where Gran's story ended, but Bork kept going and told a story I didn't know.
But the witch's poisoned apple didn't die. The dwarves, careless creatures, threw it down the mountain, and it fell in the dirt. Soon that apple was dirt itself, but the seeds didn't turn to dirt. Those seeds took root and grew into an apple tree, a magical poison apple tree.
Magic? I said. How do you know it's magic?
The troll shifted and looked around.
Because, said Swap as he scratched at his horns, the fruit is ripe year-round. What but magic could make it ripe all year long?
They all nodded and grunted in agreement, but I sensed there was something they weren't telling me. So, if I ate the apples, I would have fallen asleep forever? I asked.
Well, until true love's first kiss, maybe.
That sounded as good as dead to me. True love was for fair princesses and maidens and knights in shining armor. The only girl I was even friends with was Red, and I think she'd rather hit me in the face than kiss me. Maybe she could punch me awake. Have you ever seen someone eat those apples? I asked.
No,
said Bork. Then how do you know they're poison? Something about the apples intrigued me.
A deer ate those apples once, said Slop. I saw him, and the next day we found him dead.
He rubbed the horns on his helmet.
Wolves got him, Slop, said Bork. Those weren't wolves. Those apples ate him from the inside out.
Enough about death and fruit, said Mard. Eat your sludge. The trolls all got busy slurping and snorting, and so I did my best to blend in by holding my cup to my lips. Every now and then I spilled a little behind me until my cup was empty. But, unluckily for me, trolls are very hospitable, and Mard took my cup and plunged it into the pot of sludge. She handed it back to me with sludge dripping down the sides. You need more meat on you. Eat, she said. I ate another worm. It wriggled down my throat.
So, said another troll as he slurped the last of his sludge.
This one looked very old. All the trolls had wrinkles, but this one's skin had wrinkles inside of the wrinkles, and his tangled hair was streaked with white.
I heard the king got married. King Barfahue married? Said Bork. Who would marry such an ugly thing? I heard the girl can make things gold.
Straw, I said. She makes straw into gold.
A witch, said Slop, the horned troll. The king married a witch. I smell trouble. I wouldn't get within 10 steps of that witch, said Bork. Well, maybe don't come within 10 steps of us if we're not bad, said another troll. The witch who made that apple was bad, said Bork. Others grunted their agreements.
I wondered if my mother's family in yonder were all witches. Were they nice witches or mean witches? Maybe Mother was really running from them. But they're not all bad, are they? I asked. Some witches try to help. Witches don't help, said Mard. They just make more trouble.
You would know, said a big troll,
and Mard whacked him on the back of the head with her club-like arm. He whacked her back. Then suddenly all the trolls started whacking each other, and they rolled and wrestled on the ground. I stood quickly, spilling sludge all down my shirt. A couple of trolls came very near the fire, and sparks flew up in the air before they rolled away, laughing in their grunty, snorty way. It seemed this was common troll after-dinner play. I looked on as the trolls wrestled and snorted and punched each other, almost enjoying the scene, until one troll suddenly sank down into the ground beneath some leaves. All the trolls gasped. Quickly they hauled the troll out and began shoveling leaves over the place where he had fallen. Mard waddled over to me and tried to turn me around, but then another troll slipped on the edge. Soon the entire mass of leaves was scattered, revealing something the trolls did not want me to see. I broke away from Mard. Beneath the leaves was a hole, and in the hole was a huge stash of curious objects: a boot, a mirror, lots of little boxes and trinkets that looked old and valuable, a coil of golden rope that looked oddly like hair, a shimmering cloak, and a golden harp. And the harp was playing all by itself.